Reddit, the front page of the internet, home to 1.6 billion monthly active users. It's an app for everybody, and with that, it has a dark side. This is a journey into Reddit's most disturbing users ever recorded. Starting with one of Reddit's oldest users, Carl H. His account opened back in 2006, less than a year after its release. For the first couple of years on Reddit, he was barely known. Most of his activity was on political and religious posts. This is typical on Reddit, and it's what his account looked like for 3 years. But in September 2009, Carl H came up with an idea that would bring him fame in the Reddit world. Carl H made a post on R programming, offering a free programming course where he could share his 15 years of professional programming knowledge. He explained that he really enjoyed teaching other people how to program, and that with some spare time, he could help those running into issues on their programming journey. He explained that it's just me being nice and hopefully helping someone out. His offer interested many, because within the next few hours, the post received hundreds of comments and Carl H's inbox blew up with programming requests. But he didn't just want to help a few people, he wanted to help everybody. So over the next few weeks, he made hundreds of posts as a free course for all levels of skill, from total beginner to expert. Carl H spent much of his day helping users and replying to comments. If you look at his profile history, you'll see thousands of comments and posts where Carl H made somebody's life a whole lot easier. Carl H was even known to join Skype calls with various users to teach them, even creating a YouTube channel. And so a few months later, he now had over 8,000 followers on Reddit. And this is when he'd open up a free-to-use programming website called ComputerScienceForEveryone.com. This was a man willing to solve problems and really go the extra mile to help a stranger out. Over 2 years, Carl H gained traction and had over 20,000 followers on his subreddit, and his YouTube channel had over 30,000 subscribers, a phenomenal amount back in 2012. Simply put, the Reddit community loved him. So much so that on July 26, 2012, Carl H received the notable prize Redditor of the Day. But in the middle of November 2013, he suddenly vanished. Both Carl's Reddit and YouTube accounts just ceased operations. The programming subreddits continued, but somebody was missing. The silence was loud and his followers noticed something was off. So after a week, most just assumed he was on a break or too busy with something from work. Some even suggested it could have been health issues. But a couple weeks later, one Reddit user found an article about an individual named Carl Harold, the father of a 9-year-old child. This individual was a single father, left to take care of his boy, and Carl and his son lived with his romantic partner, Charles Dunavant. But Carl's son wasn't getting much of a life. See, the article claimed that after a lengthy FBI investigation, Carl Harold and Charles Dunavant were arrested for creating, participating in, distributing illicit images of an underage child. And it was discovered that Carl's child had been held captive in his basement for at least 8 months. He was not allowed to go to school or see a doctor. Instead, it was Carl and his partner who would ethically abuse and film what they were doing, distributing the content online. The FBI found the adult content images posted online, and this led to a full investigation which led to their arrest. The case was ongoing. At first, most of Carl H's followers claimed it was unlikely that this was Carl H. Others claimed that even if it was the same Carl, an arrest didn't mean he's guilty. How was it possible this extremely helpful geeky programmer who helped thousands of people could commit such crimes? It didn't seem likely that these two were connected. Just because they had similar initials really didn't mean they were the same person. But because this was Reddit, some people were curious if this really was the same person. And so these Reddit users would go over his Reddit account, where they would find some rather strange posts. In some of his earliest posts, Carl H would defend the Christian faith, and in many of his posts he would always talk about Christianity. For instance, in this post titled, "How Evangelical Children Learn About Abortion," the post brought up the controversial Jesus Camp documentary, and Carl H was in the comments defending Christian camps for children. Quote, "As a 12-year-old, I attended a Christian summer camp, had a fantastic time, had memories that will live with me forever, and I met new friends, and overall had a great time. There is nothing wrong with a Christian summer camp, and the vile hatred which exists against Christians is just plain wrong and totally unwarranted," which was the first bit of information about his childhood. In other posts, he spoke about gay marriage and homosexual activity within the Bible. He explained how the Bible leaves no room for interpretation and that homosexuality was a sin. In fact, many of his posts consisted of these sorts of controversial views, and he was happy to argue with anyone that didn't agree with him. But his religious background and anti-gay views directly contradicted the person in the article. This is a pattern that the world has seen time and time again. Anti-gay activists using homophobia as a front to hide their own homosexual tendencies. But eventually a comment was found where Carl revealed his name. Reddit can make it happen. What's your name? Carl Harold. And another post, Carl H spoke about his own child, saying he'd want to homeschool his 3-year-old. A post he made dating back 6 years, making his child 9 years old. As soon as this was pointed out, reality settled in. Carl Harold was a kitty toucher and with his own son. All of the talks about Carl H were that of pure hatred. that he had hundreds of photos that would make anyone sick to their stomach, people were horrified about the man they were following. According to the reports, it was eventually clear that both men were involved, but for some reason it was said that Cole thought he stood a good chance to win the case. I mean, Cole was facing 18 accounts of charges, including conspiracy to commit sodomy, conspiracy to commit astral charges, and touching under 12 people, as well as aggravated child harm, to name a few. When Cole was eventually arrested, the state assigned him a lawyer, who Cole declined and hired his own defense lawyer. However, this would prove to be in vain. Before the set time to appear in court on November 21st, Cole was found dead in his cell, because on November 3rd, Cole had taken his own life. As for his partner in crime, he was eventually sentenced to 56 years in prison. Both news media and his Reddit community showed no remorse, calling him a coward and man who couldn't face the consequences of his own actions. Quote, "Rest in pain and hope you in hell." That's how Cole H went from Redditor of the Day to the most hated Redditor. But hiding who you really are on the internet is pretty simple. And the story of Galpticos is no different. Now, if you've browsed his Reddit account, you think a few things. He loves games, he loves memes, and he's probably a little bit depressed. Galpticos opened his account on September 2nd, 2017, and he quickly became, well, a nobody on the platform. He spent a lot of time on Reddit, making comments on subreddits like r/memes, r/Fortnite and Ask Reddit. There was nothing that made Galpticos stand out from any other Reddit user. So why is he in this video? Well, over the 2 years Galpticos' account was open, he would slowly show signs of depression and alluded to how little he felt about himself. In a Reddit post titled, quote, "People who used to be straight A students but later changed, what happened?" we see Galpticos explain that he's been dealing with depression from when he was in high school. Quote, "Getting A's was super easy for me, but once I got into high school I became depressed. I was able to ace quizzes and tests, but my grade in the class itself would be B's simply because I didn't turn in any of the assignments or labs or whatever." Then over his next few hundred posts on the platform, he'd casually noticed depression more and more. In another post he claimed that he wished his parents were more strict because now he's a useless waste of space. He joked that he'd wish he was never born and that he was forced to fake smiles out in public. But once again in the Reddit world, he went unnoticed. Even if you browsed his average post, it was just a comment on some meme. But behind the scenes, the man behind the screen was a ticking time bomb, and something evil was cooking up inside of his head. Over time, the posts about self-hate continued. One post on Ask Reddit with the question, "What has been the most depressing moment / realization of your life so far?" Galpticos gave a glimpse of exactly what was going on in his head. "Even though I was lucky enough to be born with a good family, a good home, have good friends, live in one of the most privileged countries in the world, and have the ability to fix any problems I have, I'm too useless to fix any of them, and I'm still unhappy." Nobody knew, but this person seriously needed help. Unfortunately, he wouldn't get it, and the consequences of this were way worse than you can possibly imagine. Farron Towid was a 19-year-old male who lived in Texas. He was semi-close with his older brother, Tanvir Towid, and although he didn't get the best grades in school, he did make it to university. But things didn't work out, as halfway through the year, Farron decided to drop out. So he moved back to his house in Texas with his family. Farron didn't do too much. He spent a lot of time playing games like Portal and Fortnite, or sat with the family while on his phone, and his online alliance was Galpticos, one he'd chosen when he played Roblox when he was much younger. As you'd expect, Farron struggled with depression. While Farron didn't see a professional earlier in his life, apparently the person he spoke to about his depression didn't help too much. At least he was diagnosed with depression and got some medication, and it did seem like his life was going to get better. Farron and his brother made a 3D graphics engine, which he seemed to be proud of, motivating him to potentially return to college, or so he claimed, but it didn't amount to anything as his self-loathing held him back. Instead, Farron started to watch The Office. It was his only escape from reality, but by the time the show finished, he felt like it was all finished and he had nothing left to do. And so on the day that Farron finished The Office, he spoke to his brother about depression. His brother was going through similar levels of depression, and so the pair made a pact. They agreed that if their depression wasn't cured within a year, the two would kill their entire family, then turn the guns on themselves. They tried their best to improve, but a year was too long, so the pair changed the agreement to just a month. And many of the posts shown to you earlier was during the last couple of months of his life. And so the brothers started to prepare for their final day together. Tanvir purchased a firearm from the local store without an issue. He explained how easy it was to Farron, and he said he simply had to lie a little on the application. On April 5th, 2021, authorities were alerted to a very distressing note shared online by Farron. The Instagram post started with, "Hey everyone, I killed myself and my family," followed by a lengthy post. He went into extreme detail on his decision to end his and his family's life. A friend of Farron's called the police for a wellness check, but it was too late. As the police entered the property, they were met with the horrifying scene of blood and bodies around the house. Farron's grandmother, who was only there because it was Easter weekend, was also killed. The incident went unnoticed at first, only coming to light due to the concerning message posted online. The two would then take the lives of their family, after which they would take their own life. the police arrived on Monday. The suicide note Ferran posted included statements like, "If I'm gonna die, I might as well get some attention." He shared his struggles with mental health challenges and his journey towards seeking a sense of relief, adding in a whole section about why the office should have ended when Michael left. He then added in a section talking about his GitHub. The GitHub had the name Gabdicos written in the file names, which was how people online managed to put the Reddit account to the person. And in his message, he shared his thought process behind his actions, highlighting his belief that it would prevent further sadness for others in his family by taking their lives as well. And whilst he didn't reach out for help himself, the next person on our list did. And this didn't mean a happy ending. Jason in hell went to Our Relationship Advice and posted a long detailed Reddit post after he'd found out his wife had cheated on him. Quote, "I'm having a hard time coping with my wife having cheated on me with our neighbor." The now deleted post was over 1,700 words long, and as his username suggests, was a story of a person named Jason living with a wife that made him feel like he was living in hell. And Jason in hell wanted to know if it was his time to take his life, but no one could possibly imagine that this would lead to such a horrifying and tragic outcome. You see, the post starts with Jason in hell explaining that all his issues started in May 2015. At the time, he was extremely busy with a new project at work and was working very long hours. One of the days he was home, he found that his wife, Brandy Worley, also aged 30, had put a password on her phone, which was odd as she'd never done this before. Finding this unusual, Jason quickly called it out with Brandy. She reasoned that she was planning a Father's Day surprise and that she didn't want him to see and ruin it, but eventually she let out the surprise. Brandy had organised that their neighbour would build an office for him. What struck Jason as odd though was that she said she had felt guilty, whereas before, in all the 6 years that they were married, she said she never regretted anything. So why guilty? Even though the secret was now out, Brandy kept her passcode on the phone, and over the next few weeks, Jason often watched as Brandy smiled at her phone. But if he asked about who she was talking to, she would mumble some excuse and then put her phone away. Finally, Jason felt anxious enough about the situation, waited until she was in the shower, and grabbed the phone before the screen turned off. He opened her messages and found one little suggestive and sexy message sent to his neighbour. The message read, "I'm all covered in frosting. You want to lick it off?" Jason didn't overreact. Instead, he justifies it that was probably a bad joke. After all, this was the only message between the two. So a couple weeks pass. The office is taking a long time to complete and the neighbour is at his house often. Call it intuition, but Jason smells something is up, so he starts looking at Brandy's GPS and discovers that there are time gaps missing from her location. He didn't want to call Brandy out for nothing and start a fight, so he told Brandy that he needed to install a VPN on her phone. In the background, Jason stores a GPS system that he can remotely switch on and off, and an AT&T message backup so that he can access every message sent to and from his wife. At this point, Brandy was still under the impression that Jason was none the wiser. Soon after this, Brandy takes the kids to Jason's mum for the day, while Jason is at work while also watching the activity on her phone. Brandy first tries to see the neighbour, but he's busy with other projects. So later that evening, Brandy, Jason and the two kids go out to supper with their neighbour, his girlfriend and his son. The ladies enjoy their evening and then suggest they go watch a movie, Magic Mike XXL. Jason then suggests that he and the neighbour will watch the kids. The men are in the living room on the couch opposite each other. The kids are in another room playing, and that's when the messaging starts. Brandy is messaging him about sex acts that she wants to do to him, and the neighbour is responding all the while Jason is reading in real time all the messages between the two. Then she tells the neighbour to go look on Snapchat, and there's a picture of her masturbating in a bathroom stall. Then they plan when to have sex, and it was decided on Monday when Jason was at work. Jason's not reacting, but then she says she loves him, and the neighbour says, "You're my girl now." Jason is about to crack, but he somehow keeps composed. Remember, Jason is in the same room as the man he's seeing his wife cheat on him with. But there are kids in the room, and he's not a violent person, so he waits. The ladies come back from the movies. Jason makes sure the kids are in another room, and he gets everybody together. He then confronts Brandy and his neighbour. "So, you two love each other, huh?" Brandy flat out denies this, while the neighbour's girlfriend is hitting his neighbour. Then he asks his wife if she was texting him. She denied this until he showed her the messages. She takes ownership, but says it was the first time it had gone so far. Then he asked if she had sent pictures to him. Again, she denied this until he showed her again, and she says it was the first time. He then asks if they're having sex. She says no, and because there's no evidence, Jason is forced to accept her denial. The neighbour's girlfriend defends them, saying that it couldn't have been that serious, but Jason tells Brandy that he is leaving her. Brandy takes this as a moment to manipulate Jason. She explains that even if he tries to leave, she will make sure that she gets custody of the kids. She brings up how Jason attempted suicide and how she could convince the judge he is unfit. The neighbours leave and they fight for the rest of the night. They continue to argue all weekend and decide to separate. That Monday, Jason's in a meeting, and he gets a call from his wife to say that he must come home and explain to the kids why they are leaving. She had told them she had to leave because Daddy was angry at her, and that they had to come with her. The eldest of the two kids, Tyler, thought that because he had to leave too, Daddy was angry with him too. And of course, Brandy did not correct his assumption. Charlie, at age 2, also ends up crying because her big brother is crying. So then Jason goes home to his crying children and realizes that he is going to damage his kids, so he begs Brandy to stay. And as if Jason hasn't been put through enough already, Brandy has the audacity to order Jason to apologize to the neighbor if she wants her to stay for the kids' sake, as the neighbor's kids are social with their kids. So Jason apologizes even though he didn't want to, and quite frankly, he never should have. And so a year goes by, and lo and behold, Brandy sends the neighbor another picture, and when confronted, she says it was meant for him. Jason has been enduring this hell for the past year and has come to the end of his tether, which is why he's on Reddit asking what he should do. His marriage is fake, his job has taken a hit, he hardly sleeps, and he's just emotionally spent. The Reddit comments were all straight and direct, some harsh, some comforting, some offering him advice on the legal side of it, but in the end, it was obvious that the majority agreed that he should get out, and it did give him the push he needed to get a lawyer and get out of his marriage. He writes back that while he did ask her to go to counseling, she didn't want to fix it. So he has taken their advice and is meeting with a lawyer next week to get himself and the kids out. This is where the story should have ended. Jason would have gotten divorced, as thousands do, and moved on. Sadly though, the day after Brandy got the divorce papers at 4:45 AM, a 911 call was made that was enough to make you sick.
Montgomery County 911, where's your emergency?
203 South Madison Street.
In what town?
Darlington.
Hey, what's going on there?
I just stabbed myself and I killed my 2 children.
You stabbed yourself and killed your 2 children?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what's your name?
Brandy Worley.
Brandy what?
Worley.
Okay. How do you spell your last name?
Worley.
And where are the children at?
In my daughter's room on the floor.
In your daughter's room on the floor? Okay. And what caused you to do this today?
My husband wanted to divorce and wanted to take my kid. I won't let him have my kid.
Okay, and how old are your children?
7 and 3.
10 and 3?
7.
7 and 3?
Mm-hmm.
Where did you stab yourself at?
In the neck.
Okay, are you bleeding?
Yeah, there's blood everywhere.
Okay, and where are you at?
In my living room.
You're in your living room?
Mm-hmm.
Are you armed now with the knife still?
No, it's in my children's room.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, where's your husband at?
Downstairs somewhere.
Okay, what's his condition?
I don't know. I haven't talked to him.
And when you say downstairs, is he in a basement or?
Yeah.
Okay, what's his name?
Jason.
Is what?
Jason.
Nathan?
Jason.
Jason?
An eerie calm Brandy tells the dispatcher that she has killed her 7-year-old son and 3-year-old daughter and stabbed herself in the neck. She doesn't sound remorseful or anything. As the dispatcher asks her more questions, you can hear that even he is battling to have empathy. In the middle of the night, she woke up her son and stabbed him to death in her daughter's room. This woke up her daughter, whom she consoled to go back to sleep, and then proceeded to stab her to death as well. The dispatcher asked why she did it, and she simply said that her husband wanted a divorce and wanted to take the kids. When asked where Jason is, Brandy says he's in the basement and she hasn't spoken to him yet. Brandy had called her mother before calling 911, and when her mother came over, the dispatcher asked her to confirm Brandy's story. And upon entering her granddaughter's room, she started screaming, "My babies!" And I just don't know. The police arrived just as the screaming woke Jason. Jason found his mother-in-law in the kitchen screaming. When Brandy sees Jason, she tells him, "Now you can't take my children away from me." Jason hasn't grasped what is going on, but as the police let him out the house, he hears the report of his 2 deceased children on the radio. Brandy tells the paramedic that she had intended to end her life and that she somehow screwed it up. The autopsy would later show that Brandy had stabbed both children multiple times and saved little effort for herself. It was also later found that it was all premeditated. Earlier that evening, Brandy had gone to the store to buy the knife that she used to kill the children. She had told Jason it was for pipe cleaners for the kids' project. Then she hid the knife in the room. Brandy initially pleaded temporary insanity, but later changed her plea to not guilty. While her lawyers argued that her cold demeanor was a result of her detaching to cope with what she had done, it did not spare her from justice. She was sentenced to 55 years for the murder of her son and 65 for the murder of her daughter. But on the Reddit side of things, most figured that they'd heard the end of Jason in hell. He went silent for a while. One Reddit user did make the connection of a news article about the death of the 2 children, but making a connection as such was a stretch, so nobody thought much of it. A couple weeks later, Jason in hell returned, confirming what had happened, and answer some questions. For Jason, well, his life had just changed in the most drastic way possible. Jason spoke about how he'd have to go back to the house where his children were murdered, and although the cleaners had come and gone, he swore he could still smell blood in his daughter's room. He left the house saying he just couldn't stay there. He also stated that he failed as a father to protect them, and he was also left questioning if he could have stopped her. Brandy suggested sleeping on the couch instead of the mattress in the basement, and Jason often wonders if he had slept on the couch, it might have changed the outcome, or he could have died with them. Jason posted an update, which is just heartbreaking to read. The post tells of thoughts of unaliving herself, and using alcohol as a means of sleep. Fortunately, his family intervened before it became a problem. He also tells how his in-laws continue to be a problem in his life, to the extent that they don't allow him to be at his children's graves unwatched. His parting words are wise and sweet. Jason encourages all to take the time to spend with their loved ones. He ends off saying that he is grateful that his last words to his children were, "I love you. Good night. I will see you in the morning."